Hello.
Good evening. It will be helpful if I unmute it, huh?
Mic check. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Good, good. I can hear you loud and clear. Mm-hmm.
Great, great. Okay, so we're gonna start in a couple of minutes. We are waiting on a couple more guests.
Okay.
So hopefully everybody can be patient, and I
Right.
hope all of the lives and such are working. This is kind of my first time doing this multi streaming situation,
I
so
know. No.
bear with me, everybody. Just
It's a
bear with
lot.
me. Yes, let's see. Um, I don't know if we're live or not on Facebook, and so I'm gonna have to go look. So good evening, Joya.
Good
Good
evening.
evening. Thank you. Good evening, everybody who can see us. Just give us a couple of moments. Okay, just give us a couple of moments. Definitely appreciate your patience. Very much appreciate your patience in joining us tonight to talk about the wrongful conviction, the unjust sentence of death, and the upcoming fight to save Mr. Marcellus Williams' life. So again, thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Okay, okay, I think we're good, and we are going to be taking questions, etc. We have um, Elise in the background monitoring things, so definitely on all of the social medias. If you have questions, you can put them in those chats, and then we'll get them in our chat back here. So okay. Okay, let's see. Again, thank you very much for your patience. Okay. And we have to go live on Instagram. So I think we are live everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter right now. Yeah, I think we are live on all of the platforms. So we are again still waiting for a couple folks, and we're definitely going to give them a little time to join us. But I would love to go ahead and start.
And while
Joya,
we're waiting, just have everybody put hashtag free Khalifa. Save
yes.
Khalifa. We just need to see that flooded in the chat right now. So whether you're watching on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, let's just flood the timelines with free Khalifa, save Khalifa.
We talk a lot about injustice, etc., in our work, but when it's literally a life and death issue, it's very very serious, and we truly do appreciate everybody being here and everybody hashtagging. And these next, I believe we have 11 weeks, so these next many weeks are going to be crucial to advocating for Khalifa. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Everyone, again, thank you for joining us. My name is Michelle Smith. I am the co-director of Missourians to Abolish the Death Penalty. And I am joined right now by my amazing sister, Joya Aaron Thornton of FLOC. And FLOC stands for Faith Leaders of Color Coalition. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our organization, and then let Joya also talk a little bit about her work with FLOC. And hopefully our other guests will be here by then. So, Missourians to Abolish the Death Penalty is a statewide organization. We are the only organization in our state that focuses solely on ending capital punishment in Missouri. And when we say ending capital punishment, that also means lessening the effects. And we call that, it's a word called attrition. So, meaning breaking down things like how the practice of executing people with mental illnesses and intellectual disabilities, we are working to stop those practices from occurring. In addition to our work, like in our legislature, we also work in our community to educate people about why the system of capital punishment first does not work. First is a severe injustice, and why we can be better as a society, right? And then lastly, we support the people on death row in our state. And I'll end this by saying Missouri has the death penalty. Missouri executes people actually pretty often. Since 2022, there have been 8 executions, 4 alone in 2023. And so this is a state like many other southern states that practice the system of capital punishment, and a handful that do it pretty often. Among that, Florida, Oklahoma, Alabama, and a couple of other states. And so we are in this sad little bunch of states that just don't value humanity, right? And so our work is advocating for the end of that. And in this particular instance, right now, we are joined because what is going on with Marcellus Khaliifah Williams is very serious, because he not only is innocent, but he is facing an execution date of September 24th of this year. And we'll get a little bit more into Khaliifah's case, his situation, and how you can support, right? So again, like Joya said, go ahead and, hashtag free Khaliifah, hashtag save Marcellus, hashtag innocent lives matter, because they do, right? And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Joya and allow you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work with Flock.
Thank you so much, Michelle and Elle, my sister in the movement, my fellow Justice Bay. There is no place that I would rather be on a Tuesday than launching this campaign with Missourians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty, the Innocence Project, and so many others that are supporting Khaliifah's case. I know right now that many of you who are tuning in just see us too, but Khaliifah has an army. He has an army of people behind him. And I just want to elevate that and make mention of that and ask you to join our army. We need everyone on board. This is the ninth hour. To say that we are in the ninth hour would be an understatement. We know that you have talents. We know that you have gifts. The many generations, social media, anyone that has some type of gift and heart when it comes to Khaliifah's case. And I know that you do, because you're here with us. We invite you right now that now is the time to get loud. So that is what we're doing right now by launching this campaign, is getting loud. So I am Joya Aaron Thornton. I am the founder and the national director of the Faith Leaders of Color Coalition, or FLOC, affectionately in the movement FLOC Justice. We are a multi-faith policy organization that extends the access of policy information, legal information, and also public education to Black and Indigenous faith leaders across the country. We are in about 26 states. We are 300 pastors strong, and we've been able to pass bills in the South and also get involved with a lot of campaigns to stop executions of not just innocent people, but to stop this system of judicial homicide that we call the death penalty system in America. You'll hear more about why each of us are attached to this case, but I want to tell you right now that we are just excited because we are hopeful. We're not approaching this in a manner of we're just doing business as usual. We are going to work and we are fighting for Khaliifah.
We are. We are. Thank you so much for that, Joya. You always inspire me with your words and your work. So we are going to go ahead and start talking about Marcellus Khalifa Williams and the campaign that we are launching tonight to advocate for him, to amplify his humanity, to amplify his innocence, and to garner more support in our community for the injustice that is occurring to him. So I am going to try to, okay, upload this file so that we can look at the toolkit. And I'll just say real quick, so we created something called a campaign toolkit. Is also often called a social media toolkit to the audience and to Joya. And if those people who don't know what that is, it is basically a document. A lot of times it has a lot of graphics in it, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just text. But we did make it more graphical for Khalifa. And so it's a set of slides or PDFs in this case that talk about the case that has a lot of links. So we're going to be clicking around and opening up different links. And all of these links go to things that you can use to support the campaign and to amplify this situation with Khalifa, this injustice that's going on. Just really quick, so I'm going to try to add it here. Oh, look at that. Okay. I'm honestly proud of myself, you guys.
You
So
did
please,
it. You did it, sis. You got it.
listen. So, and I have had a little help. I've been DMing a few friends over the last couple of days, like help me, so people have been giving me advice, and I appreciate it. So this is the toolkit for the Free Khalifa Innocence campaign. So I want to just step back a little bit and talk about Khalifa. So Khalifa was born Marcellus Williams here in St. Louis, Missouri. Since he has been incarcerated, he has taken what was called the Shadah, which is the faith, the Muslim faith. He adopted the Muslim faith, and with doing that, he took on the name of Khalifa. So sometimes I go interchangeably between Marcellus and Khalifa, but I always try to make sure that I use his Muslim name because I greatly respect his faith. But also, interestingly enough, Khalifa is the imam in the prison he's in. So he's a very devout person. He's very faithful. He often sends me different scriptures. And, often I have to ask some of my Muslim friends to interpret for me because I am not Muslim. So I can't, I don't know exactly, but they're always beautiful and just relevant to what we're doing. So again, sometimes I go between Khalifa and Marcellus. And that's why, because I do try to respect and uplift his Muslim name as well. So let's see. Okay. And this just the front of the toolkit, just really, talks about our organization, madpmo.org, which is Missourians to Abolish the Death Penalty, and our social media, madpmo, and then our email, our general email is info@madpmo. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. And again, everybody, if you have questions, please add them to the chat. We are going to be taking some time to answer questions as best we can. So please, please interact in the chat with us. We appreciate it. My co-director, Elise, is actually in the background and she is in the chats, and definitely want to thank her for being here tonight, but she is going to pass those questions on to us. Now, sadly, the state of Missouri is moving forward to execute Marcellus Williams. He is innocent. And when I say Marcellus is innocent, I don't just say that, number one, I don't take it lightly, right? I know that, there have in our society people, have been known to claim they're innocent of different things and maybe they are not. But I don't take, when I call someone or when I label a case an innocence case, I don't take that lightly. I make sure that, I have the background and the information that I need to be credible in that assessment. And we'll talk about, the factors that ensure us that Khalifa is innocent. But he is an innocent person who's been on death row for nearly 24 years for a crime he did not commit. and that evidence says he did not commit. And despite this evidence of his innocence, despite tests and different DNA results and the lack of evidence at the crime scene, Missouri is pushing to execute Khalifa, and that date has been set for September the 24th of this year. In our state of Missouri, the executions are at 6 p.m. I know a lot of states it may be at midnight, but here it is at 6 p.m. And we are going to work to do our best to stop what is ultimately our state and our government is trying to push in this respect. And so, one thing I wanted to talk about to begin, Joya, is the petition. So, petitions are a way for community, society, people who care to really add their voices to, collectively say, this is not something we agree with. We want to stop this. This system is not something we agree with, but also this execution is not something we agree with. So we have been in collaboration with the Innocence Project, not only the National Innocence Project, but also our local Innocence Project here in Missouri, which is called the Midwest Innocence Project. And those entities are Khalifa's attorneys. And so, in collaboration with them, we are all pushing the one petition. And it is a short link, Free Khalifa petition. And we definitely want everyone to click it, to sign it, to share it, and have everyone else sign and share. We will be putting, we will definitely be putting, we will definitely be putting the link to the toolkit in the chat. Okay, so I want to make sure that it will be put in the chat. Elise is taking care of that for us. So again, our website, our socials, and we are using these hashtags to amplify Khalifa, Free Khalifa, Save Marcellus. We are trying to save his life and also free him from under a wrongful sentence of the death penalty. And then Innocent Lives Matter, and of course, no more executions, which is something we came up with because our state's initials are MO. So kind of a play.
I love that. When I saw that, Michelle, I just absolutely love that. I chuckled and I said, that's absolutely what we need right now.
No more, none at all. So thank you so much, Joya. So that's kind of the beginning of what we're doing, and I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. So I wanted to stop before I kind of got into a few other things. I kind of wanted to stop, Joya, and ask you a few questions, because I know that you all don't necessarily, advocate, or your organization is nationwide, right? So you're not necessarily the organization that's directly involved in any particular campaign, but you all support local orgs like my org. I know you all did some great work in Tennessee with the Purvis Payne case. So just wanted to kind of ask you a little bit about that support role that you and Flock play in these matters, and how you all do that.
Sure. First, I want to say thank you to MADP for taking the lead on this. Marcellus, Khaliifah has had support since the case's inception. There have been questions since the case's inception, from the everyday person talking in the coffee shop all the way up to some pretty high ranking legislators, including the past former governor. So I want folks to absolutely understand that there has been support, and we need more support at this point in time, because just as Michelle has stated, this case has so many questions around it that have become unanswered that we just cannot ignore this day and time. Folks are more educated, folks are more plugged in to not just death penalty cases, but justice cases as a whole. And Flock's role, really, when you mention that Khaliifah was now an imam, is to mobilize those individuals in various states that are people of faith. I always say at Flock, we emphasize data, we emphasize stories, we emphasize faith, but we also emphasize individual theology. Flock is multi faith. We have so many different people that identify with various faiths in our organization, and we respect all of them, and all of them are held to a very high esteem. So I do want to make mention of that. Flock is a space for Black and Indigenous faith leaders to come and interrogate the American capital punishment system, whether it be through cases, through policy, or just overall education. Because we do know, Michelle, sometimes we have to allow folks to blow off steam because they're not quite with us initially in the beginning. But as they hear more stories like Khaliifah's in Missouri and Purvis Payne in Tennessee, their eyes begin to open, or as we say, as people of faith, the scales begin to fall off of their eyes, and people begin to lean in to what the truth is. This case is so personal to me because I did closely work on the Free Purvis Pain campaign, also with the Innocence Project. And I don't know how much I can talk about Khalifa's case, but also in the case of Purvis Pain, there was so much evidence, tangible evidence, that pointed to someone else was at the scene of the crime other than Purvis Pain. Purvis is an innocent man, and thankfully, with hard work and his legal team, and I know Khalifa has a strong legal team behind him, we were able to grant him justice. And we're waiting on that day that he is freed from the death row system in Tennessee. So, like I said, MADP, follow them. If you don't know where to start, I would say start by giving. Start by giving to MADP. Sign the petition. A lot of people think that petitions don't hold a lot of weight. Well, if you feel like that, the other person might feel like that. We need everyone together. We are strong. You may feel like, oh, I'm just in my apartment, I'm just in my home. Filling out this petition won't make a difference. Well, it will. And we are charging with this today. We are calling all the actions that we've listed in this toolkit for you to act on those things. You can do one, you can do multiple. And if you still have questions, we are here to talk you through your questions, because this is a case that cannot be ignored. It was not ignored by the past governor. It has not been ignored by high level attorneys at the Innocence Project. So, this is something that should make you consider why the state continues to sustain this system. It is listed when someone is executed as judicial homicide. It is listed as that. We have to question these botched executions that happen so frequently in Oklahoma and other parts of the state. We have to question why individuals are sentenced to death below the age of 21 when we get into this idea of youth and the death penalty. We have to question why the state of Georgia has not allowed anyone to qualify as being intellectually disabled since the law was put in place. We have to question these things. In your state, whether you're not in Missouri, we will give you the information of what's going on in your state so that you can plug in. But it's super important for Flock as a faith organization to get involved with this case because Khalifa is a man of faith and he has held on to that from the beginning.
Yes, he definitely has. Joya, thank you so much. Your words, all like I said, always touch me because being in this community and working with people like you is definitely a space where we help each other and we support each other and we hold each other up. So thank you so much. I want to move on really quickly, and I know that Elise has been putting some links in the chats of all of the social medias. So there should be a link for the petition, also for the toolkit, which is what we're looking at here. So please, share it. You can also download the toolkit as well. So please, share that and sign the petition. Share it on social media. People post all the time, so you definitely can post the petition link. Again, post a copy of maybe one of the flyers in the toolkit, etc. So please, utilize those things tonight. We appreciate it. Back to the toolkit. So this is the getting a little bit further into the toolkit. I wanted to talk about ways you, not only you, but your groups, your organizations, your coalitions, your institutions, right? Schools. I work with a lot of college programs, law schools, college kids. So even if you're part of an institution, whatever you're part of, whatever group you're part of, including the faith community, these are ways that you can plug in. So we have what we call a graphics folder. Now I can't necessarily click on it here, but if you open up the toolkit and click on the graphics folder, it'll open a Google Drive, and it is public, so you can see it. And I believe we have probably 15 or 20 graphics right now. The graphics say, like the one behind me, if you can see behind me, this says Marcellus Williams is innocent and hashtag free Khaliifah. And there are some other graphics that talk about different aspects of the case. So please share those. You can again download them and share them to your own social media sites, or download them and include them in emails. So definitely want to make sure you utilize the graphics folder. We have another document that I created, and I just labeled it contents doc. And what this is longer form stuff, right? Because when we talk about social media, you can only, well, technically on Twitter, you can only put in so many characters. And so I definitely want to make sure that I condense some things, but there is a document with longer form, email suggestions, letters, and captions for social media. So please review that contents document to get some more details. And then the last page of the contents doc actually has all of the links that we're using tonight listed. So the links are in two places. They're in this toolkit, and they're also all in the contents doc. So please take advantage of both of those. And then we also have a one pager, and a one pager is basically a summary. And I'm actually going to go ahead and share that because I pulled it up. So I wanted to go ahead and share it. Let's see. Okay, so this is the one pager, and again, it's a summary. So basically, a few bullet points, right? These are kind of things I print and I take around with me, and I hand out to people. I have other folks that support my work as well, who will go to different meetings or go to church, etc., and they'll take things like this summary document. And so basically, it has the listed, summary of Khaliifah's case and the injustice that happened to him and why he's innocent. So just to run down real quickly all the points on here. He's been on death row for about 24 years for a crime he did not commit. He was mostly convicted based on what we call snitch testimony. In the legal area, it's called incentivized witnesses or informants. But two people came to the police basically because there was some reward money and told the police what they wanted to hear. So those were the main reasons why Khaliifah was convicted. Now, despite the fact that these two people came and said that Khaliifah did it or he told them he did it, there was no evidence at the crime scene. There was a lot of evidence at the crime scene. There was blood, there was fingerprints, footprints, hairs. There was a lot of actual evidence at the crime scene, forensic evidence to be tested. None of it matched with Khaliifah. And so when you have a crime scene that's very brutal, and this was a very brutal situation, and everything that's left and none of it matches a person, that really calls into question not only if they did it, but also the people who came forward. Did they only come forward to get the reward money or to get lesser charges of their own, right? And which was actually the case in this respect. And then we cannot talk about systemic injustices. We can't talk about the system of mass incarceration. We cannot talk about the system of capital punishment if we're not talking about racism. Racism plays a huge role in someone getting put on death row, from things such as the race of the victim versus the defendant. Also things such as the jury composition, right? And in Khaliifah's case, there were 7 potential African-American jurors, and the prosecutor made sure to, strike 6 of them for different reasons. but most of the people who came from Khalifa's community were not on his jury. So racism can again affect a case in several different aspects.
And
And
I feel
go
like
ahead.
Michelle, we don't talk about jury disqualification enough.
Mhm.
This happens far more often than we would like to think. I'm also um, definitely connected to another strategic team in Georgia where the issue of jury disqualification has come up, and this just means, when the prosecutor strikes jurors that are qualified to serve on a jury for discriminatory reasons like race, like gender, and sometimes even religion. Now, there are certain things that, according to the guidelines of the court, that you can strike a potential juror from a case. But what we're talking about is prosecutors in certain counties that are striking qualified jurors that
Mhm.
are impartial, that don't have a strong opinion either way. And that's one of the major qualities of an individual serving on a capital case being struck just for reasons like race. So we definitely need to talk about that. That is a layer of this case. This case has many layers, but that is a layer when it comes to cases involving Black men sentenced to death in the South for being accused of killing white women.
That's very, very true. And, even going a little bit further when we're talking about juries and jury duty, right? And I actually did this about 25 years ago, so I'm not saying anything I didn't do. But years ago, when I had jury duty, I had a small child. My son was maybe like 3 or 4 years old. And I went down to jury duty, but I didn't have a babysitter, right? So I was like, I can't do this. Like, I don't have a child care. But so a lot of people, get out of jury duty. But I really try to encourage people to serve on jury duty, because when we're talking about these inequities like an all white jury or majority white jury, and the people don't come from that person's community, that's because the prosecutors are striking them, but also people get out of jury duty. And I get it, we have work, kids, etc., but our people are affected by the system because we are not there, right? I have even since I've been doing this work in the last 3-4 years, I've been to trials, and I was the only Black person in the whole room, right? All of the judges and the jury and the prosecutors and the defense, etc., I'm the only Black person, and I'm just observing. I wasn't, on trial, but I'm observing. And that has struck in me, before. It's like, hey, we need our people present. So it's definitely a situation where prosecutors strike jurors, and also that people, our people don't necessarily want to serve on juries. In our own city, that back at this time, at least, the prosecutor that was here, he was known as, it was a little term they had, King of the Batson. And Batson was a court case where the defendant named Batson, in that case, the prosecutor made sure to get all the Black jurors
Right.
off of that trial, right? And so our prosecutor here in our city of St. Louis, St. Louis County, I'll specify, he was very, very adept at this. When there was a Black defendant, he put out all the stops to make sure that Black people were not on the jury. So there's, so like you said, there's so many layers in this case, and so many reasons why our people are wrongfully convicted, and sometimes end up on death row. Um, Going on a little bit, so the courts have not reviewed the evidence in this case, which is changing. And that's changing because in St. Louis County, the prosecutor's office back in January filed a motion with the local court. And what it said was, I reviewed the evidence in this case. Again, it's over 20 years old, but the prosecutor's office reviewed the evidence and said it's very likely that this person is innocent, and we should halt, with this execution, step back, and make sure that we have a proper hearing to review all of the evidence. And so that from that motion that was filed in August, on August 21st, that hearing will be held. And we definitely appreciate the judge and for scheduling the hearing, but we also appreciate the St. Louis County Prosecutor's Office as well as Khaliifah's legal team for pushing to have this particular hearing. And so I'm going to go ahead and go back to the toolkit real quick. Um, And so let's see. So of course, follow and engage. Again, our hashtag is MADPMO. Definitely share. If we've been posting for several weeks now about the case with Khalifa. We're going to be posting more as time goes on. We post things like different articles that are written across media across the country, and graphics and different links to petitions. So please follow and share all of that information on all of the social medias. We are on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We do have a TikTok, but just really, I'm old, and at least we're in our 40s. We don't know a lot about TikTok, but we thankfully have a young organizer that's helping us with TikTok, and also Khalifa's legal team, or the Innocence Project. They have a TikTok presence, and they've been getting some traction. So please follow everywhere that you can and share the info.
And I
Uh,
encourage the Gen Zers. I don't
yeah,
think we have any Gen Alphas, and we shouldn't have any Gen Alphas, but the Gen Zers to make short video, short form content about Khalifa's case. I know that different individuals on TikTok, they're looking for that niche of how they can go viral. What better way to go viral for a great case like Khalifa's? Of course, using the information from the toolkit and staying on message. But if you're out there and you are a part of Gen Z, or if you're just active on TikTok and you have a platform, we invite you to make short form content, a video, driving people to the petition.
definitely, definitely. And I know, like I said, currently there are a couple of TikTok videos from the Innocence Project. So I know people, they'll have one video, then they'll stitch it with themselves. So please, we encourage that as well. I watch TikToks. I have no idea how to make them, but I definitely have seen things go viral and things get a lot of traction. So we definitely encourage you all to use, your talents. There are people that are amazing creators on social media. I'm often awed at just how creative people can be on socials. So we definitely encourage you all to do that. And again, the graphics in the folder and anything that we are sharing with you, please, utilize it in whatever manner, that again uses your talents and your gifts. So next, where are we at? Okay, so community partners. So I created a form, and again, it is in a toolkit. You can click on when the toolkit is live. And it is a partnership form, and mostly it's for organizations, groups, institutions to share within their networks. And if you fill out the form and basically, let me know who you are, your organization, and also there's a link to upload like the logo of your organization. We are going to be sharing our partners, on our social media, thanking you for supporting us. You can download some flyers, we can print them, etc., and you can hand them out. So there are amazing ways that organizations in our communities, grassroots, on the ground folks can really get involved in the campaign. So I definitely encourage you to fill out the partnership form, Free Khalifa Partners, and connect with us. And I will be reaching out to the people that fill out that form. And again, whatever way your organization can plug in, right? Everyone can't, do things like Canvas for 10 hours. I would never ask you to. But, things like, taking some flyers to your meetings that you have anyway, right? Even talking about the case within your meeting, right? And I also can't necessarily be in person, but I'm also always available to chat with folks in their groups, etc. So please, utilize this information the best way you can. And again, we love to partner with your orgs and your groups. And of course, Georgia with Flock and so many other organizations. And lastly, on this slide is our link to get on our email list. So we also email often, right? So you can also get onto our newsletter and email list. So that is going to do it for that particular slide. And then we're going to move on. We're going to move on and talk about some of the social media stuff that you can do. Now, I put a few captions. I try to make sure the captions like fit on Twitter. I do the word count thing, and so these all should fit. But of course, you can make your own. But please, stay on message, right? But these are some of the captions that I came up with. Let's talk about the last one, Joy. I want to, and I don't know if you can see it very good. I want to talk about how people are wrongfully convicted in this country, right? I know a lot of people say, how can you get wrongfully convicted? Or, if that was me, I would do this or I would do that. And it's really easy for a person to be wrongfully convicted, but it's extremely hard to get exonerated and freed from a wrongful conviction. When I started doing this work, there is a organization and a website called the National Registry of Exonerations. And please, I definitely encourage people to go there. So, National Registry of Exonerations is a program of the University of Michigan. And what they have been doing since 1989, they've been tracking who in this country has been exonerated from being wrongfully convicted. And when I looked at the chart last, a few days ago, there were probably 3,500 people listed. So, and these people have lost literally thousands of years collectively for being wrongfully convicted, put in prison when they were innocent. The website also has things where you can break down and see why were people wrongfully convicted, right? So once a person is actually exonerated or freed, the registry goes back and looks at their case and figures out what originally had them wrongfully convicted. Sometimes it's things like police misconduct. We understand that. There can also be misleading, testing that was done. Like years ago, a lot of the ballistics evidence is not credible today, but there were people incarcerated because of that. Also, official misconduct covers police, prosecutors, etc. But one of the main reasons why people are wrongfully convicted is because of perjured testimony and false allegations of people we call informants, right? Over 60% of people that are exonerated, when we look back at their case, they were incarcerated mainly because a snitch, basically because someone had some incentive to tell the prosecutor or the police that, yeah, that person did something. And a lot of times police and prosecutors, they get tunnel vision. So once they have a willing witness to say, yeah, that person did something, or that they told me they did something, they often run with that, which is sad, but that's the reality. So with this issue of, informants, being such a high reason why people are wrongfully convicted is very sad. And the thing is, it's something that we as a society can do about it, right? There can be thorough investigations and making sure that people are not wrongfully convicted, and making sure that just because a person comes forward who has an incentive to possibly lie, making sure that that story is vetted.
And I want
So,
to talk, Michelle, I want to talk to that person that may be listening, whether it be live or on playback, to say,
mhm,
oh, you guys are just creating these get out of jail free cards for folks. There are folks that should be there. And we understand that folks commit crimes and individuals at times should be there. But friends, let's get educated. Let's knock it off and stop acting like the criminal legal system is without spot or blemish. What system in America has properly, accurately, and equitably worked for individuals, especially marginalized individuals? Not the education system, right? Not the healthcare system, not the job market, not the housing system. So why do we put so much trust sometimes? And I know not probably the people that are listening in now, but for the people that may be listening and still doubting, again, that are the doubting Thomases that are listening in right now, we have to understand that there are issues with this system, just as Michelle spoke about. There are people that are incentivized for their own will and their own good to tell on your loved one, to tell on someone that is completely innocent. And we're not trying to create savior accused individuals. We're not trying to say, and I think I saw an interview related to Khalifa's case, that people are Eagle Scouts. But what we are saying is that they did not commit those crimes. So if we have a registry of exonerated people with those many names, we have to ask more questions as a people, as a society. There are those of us who live on the debate, and many of them were saying, are these the only two people that we have? Okay, now you're listening. Now you're listening. We should be listening on the front end, paying attention to what's going on locally with our criminal legal system. I always say, go to a court watch. If your particular city has a court watch, if you're unfamiliar with what a court watch is and you want to start one in your community, get that information. It's available online. We search online for so many other things. So let's just be honest with ourselves and realize that people are not just creating campaigns to allow the worst of the worst. People are creating campaigns because there are often sometimes exculpatory evidence to show that individuals are innocent, they were not at the scene of the crime, and they should not be paying for the crimes because 24 years is far too long.
You know, Joya, not only is 24 years too long, and we're going to get a couple of slides later, but Khalifa, this is his third execution date. There was an execution date scheduled in 2015, which was canceled, I believe, a few weeks before. And the word is not canceled; it's stayed. So the court, our Supreme Court in our state, stayed the execution, meaning they stopped it in order to give, the attorneys more time to prove the evidence in the case. But also in 2017, Khalifa had an execution date at that year as well. And at that time, our governor, Governor Grimes in 2017, he stayed the execution. So not only is this death penalty system horrible, just the anxiety and everything leading up to an execution is almost unbearable. And even speaking of that, when you talked about, how things are not, just and things happen, I want to point out that July the 1st, last week, right? The 200th person was exonerated from death row in this country. Since 1976, there have been documented 200 people exonerated, freed, and proven that they did not do that crime that have been exonerated from death row. So when we even look at that statistic, just imagine how many innocent people on death row that weren't saved, right? That whatever the court procedures and processes that were going on, that person was not saved. We've had several people in our own state of Missouri that have very, very credible innocence cases that have been executed. So this is truly life and death, and it is something that our system is not perfect. I often find myself not calling it the criminal justice system. I try to, correct my language, right? I often call it the criminal legal system because that's what it is. It's a legal system. It's not necessarily justice. It's not necessarily just nor fair. And so I try to take that language out of my vocabulary because when I look at the fact that this country has wrongfully convicted at least 200 people and sent them to death row, right? And that's, of course, those are the people that are freed, right? When we look at the fact that over 3,000 people on the National Registry of Exonerations have been exonerated. And those people had sentences ranging from death sentence to life imprisonment or maybe even less time, right? But they were exonerated. And so we can't really call this justice when so many people don't actually receive justice. There is a quote by a Supreme Court justice from many years ago, and I'm not going to say it verbatim, but it says something like justice basically is something that is not necessarily fair, but it costs. It's money. You have to buy justice, basically. And that's truly what happens. So people who are Black, people who are poor, people who are marginalized in our society, they are the people that suffer under wrongful convictions and under these injustices.
Right. It's better to be rich and guilty than innocent and poor, right?
That part, that definitely, very much so, very much so. And so the middle caption that, again, you could copy and paste these on social media, talks about the evidence in the case. Now, some people, and I have actually read this, say, oh, well, two people said that he did it, or two people said that he told them he did it, right? But I mean, we're in society, it's 2024. People lie, right? Just basic. People lie. People have been known to lie in different situations for different reasons. So just because somebody said something, don't make it so, right? And so in this particular case, beyond the fact that two people said, right, that Khaliifah told them he did this horrible crime that happened, there was no physical evidence matching Khaliifah. And of course, the police and the crime lab folks, they collected all of the, the knife, which was the murder weapon. They collected hairs, they collected footprints, they collected all of these items and they tested them. None of them matched Khalifa. So when we look at the actual evidence, let's put more credence into those things than just what quote unquote somebody said. Because again, people say a whole lot of things. I can tell you, I'm rich. I can tell you, I'm 5'10" and I look like, Rihanna. It ain't true, right? So, we just have to be real and say that the system is not fair. And for whatever reason, there are people that have not been truthful. So, but other than that, we're going to go ahead and go on from this slide here. But I wanted to talk real quick about the one, and I don't know how big you can see it, but again, when you open up the toolkit and click in the graphics folder, you can see it. The slide that says, does DNA matter? And I made that actually probably one of the last graphics that I made of this collection, because when I read some motions in this case with Khalifa, I learned that during his trial, the attorneys, his defense attorneys, tried to ask the court to do DNA testing because, this was 2001. And so DNA was around at that time. And the court denied their request. And so, of course, people, the general public would be like, well, why would the court deny a request for testing of something that would prove, whether the person did it? Legal proceedings, legal processes, etc., often usurp justice, usurp what should be done. DNA testing is expensive, so a lot of times the system or that county or city don't want to pay for it. And in Khalifa's case, for years, his attorneys were denied having the murder weapon and the other evidence tested for DNA. And so when we talk about how does a person become wrongfully convicted, this is how. Right? Because if you're on trial and there is some evidence that could possibly prove you're innocent, that could possibly prove you're guilty too, right? But it could possibly prove, either way, why wouldn't it be tested? Why wouldn't complete testing be done on everything? But it's often not. And often the courts and the prosecution and the judges push back against DNA testing. This is not the first case that has happened with. This is many cases. Moving forward, though, in 2015, 2016, after that first execution was scheduled and stayed, the court finally allowed the DNA testing. Finally, right? And again, Khalifa had been on death row since 2001, so this was 15 years later. They allowed the DNA testing. The testing was conducted. And since that time, there have been 3 DNA experts, 3 scientists that do this for a living, and each of them have reviewed those DNA results, and all of them say that Khalifa did not contribute that DNA. So the murder weapon DNA, the DNA on the victim, of course, there was a struggle and an attack, so there was DNA left on her as well. None of it matched Khalifa. And I look at that like, this man fought and his attorneys fought for many years, right? And finally, they had that proof. Not only, again, the other things didn't match, the footprints, fingerprints, etc., but they had this DNA that said Khalifa did not contribute this DNA. He was not the person. And also it obviously pointed to another person. So I just wanted to make sure that we understand that the system is so flawed that procedures and legalities mean more than actual justice. And I don't know if you had any comments on that, Joya, but I was going to go ahead and go to the next slide.
I do. When you talk about the DNA being denied, St. Louis County has a history of denying the defense motion to request and conduct DNA evidence. So this is not something that has just been done in Khalifa's case, but it's been done over several defense cases. And definitely want to lift up the family of Miss Gail, because when you talk about the impact of victims' families, we have a group called Journey of Hope from Violence to Healing. And these are victims' families who do not want the death penalty. And I'm not speaking for her family, but I definitely want to uplift her. And when you talk about the evidence with a knife in this case, like there's no denying that if you're going to accuse somebody like Khalifa, Marcellus, then there should have been DNA all over the murder weapon, but it was not. So that's just something that we have to talk about when, you know, the prosecutors and they talk about this is still the strong case. No, it's not. It is very flawed. And Miss Gail deserves justice. You know, her family deserves justice. A lot of families, people will have you thinking, prosecutors and folks who believe in this system of death will have you thinking that once a person is executed, then there is solace, right? There is peace. You are able to move on. And that is very contrary. So I do encourage folks that are listening that do not know about Journey of Hope to plug into Journey of Hope and hear some of their stories.
Thank you so much, Joya. And I also, in my own city, we have a victims organization called, it's under an organization called Art City. And it is a group of family members that have lost loved ones, right? And we grieve with them. And it's called the Fatal State Violence Program. But we grieve with them. And I grieve with all victims. I've never, tried to purport that even though I advocate for people on death row and to end the system of capital punishment, that I've not grieved with the family, or I have not, felt so much sorrow that their loved one was taken from them. Of course, that is a very sad situation. But I look at it from a perspective of it is not going to fix anything. Like you said, grief is grief. We also work with several victims who family members were killed. Several families that have loved ones that were victims and that who were killed, and they don't believe that this system works. They also don't believe in the death penalty because, again, it is not going to retrieve their loved one. They are still going to be grieving. And so we definitely, all our condolences to the Gale family. They lost a loved one, right? We can never take away from the fact that someone has lost a loved one. But we also understand that this system of capital punishment is arbitrary. It doesn't fix anything. It doesn't add to public safety. And it is so flawed that it should not be something that our civilized society uses. So definitely thank you for mentioning that as well. So let's see. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to this timeline that I had put together, and it's basically a timeline of the major points of the case. Not everything, of course, but some of the major things. And when you go into the toolkit, several of them have a link, and most of these links are to like articles, right? And I definitely encourage people to read the articles over the years. Like when we started this, Joya, you said that there have been questions from the beginning, and that's true. Some of the first articles written about this case were questioning if Khalifa was guilty. So it started in 1998 when Miss Felicia Gale was killed. In 1999, Khalifa was arrested after these incentivized witnesses said, he told us he did it. And then he was convicted in 2001. And after his conviction, for the next 13, 14, 15 years, his attorneys worked diligently, to get the DNA tested, to appeal his conviction, because they knew even at that time that he was innocent. So this goes through the timeline up until now. And I want to go to the end, 2003, 2004, explain a few things. So after the last execution date was scheduled in 2017, it was stayed by that then governor. And the governor saw the DNA testing results, right? His name was Governor Greitens. And he saw the DNA testing results, and he saw the reports from the experts that said Marcellus Williams wasn't the contributor to his DNA. And he felt like, hey, let's step back before we kill an innocent person. And he stayed Marcellus's execution date. And at that time, he also appointed a board of inquiry. So this board of inquiry is a group of 5. They were retired judges, who they were. So a group of 5 retired judges, and they were to get together to investigate the case. They were of course, impartial. They weren't connected whatsoever, and they were legal experts, so they were convened to investigate the case, to look into exactly what happened. And they took their time with that, because when you're talking about a person's life, you should be taking your time. It should be no rush to judgment. Now, in 2023, last year, our current governor, Governor Parson, decided to dismiss this board of inquiry. So not only did he dismiss the board, they were not allowed to actually release their findings publicly. And after the governor dismissed the board and blocked them from releasing their findings, the next day our Attorney General asked for execution date. So that is kind of where we are right now, with a pending execution of September 24th in local court, in our St. Louis County Court. There's a hearing to be held on the 21st of August. And thankfully, this local judge wants to look at the evidence and wants to review it, because he also sees that executing an innocent person is an egregious thing. So that is where we are. That's at the end of the timeline. So August 21st is the hearing, and the execution is scheduled September 24th. And it is our hope, and we have a lot of high hopes that Khaliifah will be saved, that execution will not happen. So, and I think we're almost at the end. Real quick, we ask people specifically in Missouri to contact our governor, to contact your legislators, and to contact the Attorney General's office. Basically, you pay these people salary, right? If you live in the state of Missouri, you pay taxes, you pay these folks salary, and you or elected them into office. So you are a constituent, and your voice should be heard. And so we are encouraging people to call the governor, to write the governor, to email the governor, as well as the AG. And all in sample letters are in the toolkit, as well as there is a link for the emails. And if you click that link in the toolkit, it'll auto generate an email to the governor. So we have that as well. So please reach out to your elected officials if you're in Missouri, right? Please let them know that this is not something our state should be carrying out, and that being a constituent is not something you agree with. And we need to take a step back and not move forward with executing an innocent person. So definitely encourage everyone to go to that content doc and copy paste, click on the links, and definitely make your voices heard. And I also, real quick, a couple years ago, one of our supporters asked me, she said, well, I emailed the governor, should I keep doing it, or should I keep calling the governor? And I told her, yes, call every day, email every day, right? You are a constituent. Your voice should be heard in this situation. And if that means calling their office every day, and that particular person, she was a retired person, so she had the time, right? Because everybody doesn't have the time, but she had the time, and she would call the governor's office every day. And just let them know that she was paying attention to what our government was doing. So I just encourage everyone to do that. And then let's see, I think we're just about at the end. So Joya, did you want to make any comments before we got to the last slide? We're just about at the end here.
This is brilliant. This is brilliant. This is more than enough information for people to plug into their organizations, their groups, their communities, and never deny the power of one-on-ones. Even if you are not actively a part of a large community or even a mid-sized community, having a conversation with someone that you talk to regularly about this case, say, hey, I'm plugged into this case. I'm interested in this case in Missouri and St. Louis County, and I believe you should know about it too. That little game we used to play as kids called the telephone, when one person tell the next person and then everybody finds out. Sometimes, information is a little murky, but you have this toolkit. So it's no reason for you to be off message, because we have provided this toolkit for you. And like I said, representing Flock, founding Flock, carving this space out for grass tops leaders and pastors and faith leaders and seminarians and folks that want to have more faith and justice conversations. We are here for you. We are here to guide you, to hold your hand. And if you're already on the ground doing the work, we're here to amplify that work. So never deny the power of your circle of influence when it comes to this work. And thank you so much, Michelle and Elise,
Oh,
for allowing me to be on this platform and talk about flock, but most importantly, to prioritize saving the life of Khalifa.
thank you so much, Joya. And I know you have to go in a couple moments. So if you need to log off, please do. Again, thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for all of your work and your support. This is the last slide, and it is our action item, our largest action item. And there was also a question in the chat about this. There was a question about will there be a rally prior to the August 21st hearing? There will be. We will be outside of the St. Louis County Courthouse August the 21st, and we invite everyone to come. I know everyone can't necessarily travel to Missouri, but if you're in St. Louis, if you're in Kansas City, if you're in Columbia, if you're in Springfield, etc., please make your way to St. Louis on August the 21st, because we have to stand up for a person that's innocent and for ultimately for justice, right? And so we will have a rally at the St. Louis County Courthouse August 21st. We will stand in solidarity for Khalifa, for his family, support of his legal team while they are in court, you know, arguing the case and arguing the fact that he is innocent and he needs to be exonerated. So we will have a rally that day on August the 21st. More info to come. So follow us, right? Follow us, like I said, on social media, etc. This is our contact info at the bottom here. Elise Max, co-director, who's been in the background supporting, and her email, me, Michelle, and my email, and both of our numbers. So please reach out to us. But yes, we will have a rally on August the 21st, and we will amplify and support and stand in solidarity with Marcellus Williams in this critical time where his life is on the line. His life is literally on the line. We will also be doing a few other things in our communities, right? So please stay connected with us. You know, and if you want to say hand out some flyers, etc., get into contact with us, and we'll make sure that that happens. So there are many ways to plug in, but August the 21st is that major day that we need support. We need our community to show up. And also, if you're not here, because we've had situations where, and I know, Joya, you all did too, like for Purvis's case. And I'm also thinking about cases such as Julius Jones in Oklahoma, and they had an amazing campaign. People held rallies in their own city. So if you can't necessarily make it to Missouri or St.
Right,
Louis,
absolutely.
yeah, definitely wherever you are, justice should be the priority, right? So please hold a rally in your own city, stand in solidarity with us wherever you are.
Thank you,
Okay.
everybody.
Yes,
And I
thank
have to
you.
jump off, but thank you everybody for listening in. No matter if you listen to the whole thing or if you kind of popped in here and there, or if you're listening on playback. I am super pumped about joining in with MADP. Flock is fully committed to the cause of saving Khalifa's life. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Joya. Thank you all for joining us. Again, this was our first time going live like this. I hope there wasn't too many hiccups. We appreciate you all. And again, if you have any questions, you can DM us, of course, but you can also email either Elise or I. And we look forward to this fight, because it is going to be a fight, and we look forward to having your support and solidarity in this. So thank you all. And lastly, free Khalifa. Hashtag free Khalifa. Save Marcellus.
Free
Innocent life.
Khalifa.
Yes, yes. Thank you all. You have a good night.